Hi, Lisa here with New Start University, and I want to talk to you about a post that I made yesterday that had a lot of you commenting. I heard as I was driving to work yesterday, there was a new book that's been released, and it's called The Fifth Trimester, and it's all about when a mom has to leave her baby and go back to work. And during they were talking about that book and everything, and the radio host, he made a comment that it has been proven that it takes a woman 6 months for her emotions to get back to that pre-birth state. 6 months. Are you kidding me? I mean, when I heard that, I about slammed on my brakes and just freaked out a little bit because I was like, what are you talking about? 6 months? And then it made me wonder if there was just something wrong with me. Because I am pretty sure that once I found out I was pregnant and I was responsible for taking care of growing a human being in my body, that my emotions from that point until the point we are today, 21 years later, have been all over the place and have never gone back to my pre-birth emotional state. I think it's ludicrous to even insinuate that that's possible. I mean, how is that even possible? Let's think about this for a minute. I started thinking about the first 6 months of my kids' lives. And this is what I remember. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of poopy diapers. Did I mention a lot of crying on both parts from me and from the child? Lots of poopy diapers, a lot of cooing, a lot of napping, a lot of spit up, a few doctor visits. That's really what I remember. I do not remember after their birth there being a lot of emotions within that 6 month time period. I mean, yes, I was falling deeply in love with them, obviously, and I would have had an emotional response to somebody trying to hurt them or, if they were fighting for their lives or something. I mean, that's common sense. But the emotions that I went through from the time they were born until they were 6 months old pale in comparison to the emotional roller coaster that I have been on from the time I had them until the point that we are today. So many different emotions. I mean, I remember the first time they rolled over. I remember just, having them on a blanket on the floor and just cheering for them. And when they finally rolled over for the first time and did something, that was deemed amazing, because up until that point they had only sat there and cried and slept. I was so excited. And there was just this feeling in my heart, this emotional feeling of just pride and like, look what this thing that I can call my own, look what they just did. That was emotional. I remember when they took their very first steps and, they fell down and got hurt as they were learning to walk, and how that was emotional because you hate to see your child hurting. I remember the first day of kindergarten, how emotional that was for me when I realized that after I dropped them off at that door with that teacher, that somebody else besides their mom and dad had the opportunity to influence them in ways that I had never been able to imagine up until that point. And knowing that, that was the first step of independence for these little human beings that I had been charged with taking care of. That was a crazy emotional day. I remember just going back to work and just boo-hooing and boo-hooing and just crying. That was emotional. And it happened way after 6 months. I remember the very first time that my oldest came home from school and I had dressed him um, in a pair of jeans that had a hole in them. And I asked him how his day was, and he acted kind of funny, and he immediately looked over towards the car door and just started crying and told me that kids had seen his underwear at school and they'd been making fun of him. Talk about emotional, the emotional guilt that I felt. That was some emotion. And he was way older than 6 months old. I remember another one of my children after a football end of the season party. We were all at a restaurant and parents were not watching their kids and they were just running all over the place. And my son asked if he could go to the bathroom. And I said, no, I thought they were going in there to play. So I made him go to the bathroom with me. And as we were in there, in walked some little cheerleaders who started asking him why he was in the girls' bathroom, and the humiliation and the shame and just the embarrassment that came over my son's face, and me realizing that I had kind of caused that by making him go into the women's bathroom. That was emotional. I went home and I remember crying to my husband that night and thinking, I am the world's worst mom because I put him in this situation and he got his feelings hurt. Because you see, as moms and dads, it's our job to protect our children. We want to put this little cocoon around them. And we get very emotional if we see that something has pricked that bubble. And I just don't see how you ever go back to a pre-birth state. I just don't think it's possible. And I don't even know how that radio MC could even say that on the air. Gosh, I could just go on and on. I mean, watching them grow up and having girlfriends, hurt their feelings and seeing them be torn up, or, maybe not making baseball teams or basketball teams, or, going in and out of different friendships, and just all the different emotions that go along with that as you're helping them navigate these waters called life. And then one day it comes to graduation, which is where I find myself in this season again with my middle son. And you're so, so proud. And like that day that you watch them walk across the stage. I mean, I remember with my oldest one just being so proud, like we've done it. And that was very, very emotional. And, just the pride that you feel is emotional. And then the sadness knowing that so many things are coming to an end. You meet so many different parents while your kids are growing up, parents that are in Boy Scouts with them, or basketball, or travel ball. And, one thing I've learned in the season of life I'm in now is that when they stop playing those sports, your circle of friends change because you don't see those people a lot. And there's a lot of sadness in that. So that's emotional. Then I have my other one that's getting ready to get married. And that is a whole nother level of emotion that I really can't even talk about. Because one, I'm so proud of the man that he has become, and the man that, is going to, in 6 short months, make a promise to take care of another human being. And I know that eventually they'll start a family, and, he's going to be experiencing all these emotions that his father and I have experienced throughout this lifetime. But I know that my emotional state isn't going to stop there, because one day they're going to have grandchildren, or they're going to have kids, which will become my grandchildren. And I imagine that I'll get emotional all over again. So if somebody could please just explain to me how somebody thought that your pre-emotional state, or your emotional state, goes back to the way it was before you had kids in just 6 months' time, I don't get it. Am I the only one? Am I the only one that thinks that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard? I know I'm crazy. I know I'm emotional, but surely I'm not the only one. I would love to know your thoughts.